Hello, Gaz Williams here for Sonic State. We have an exclusive interview and rig rundown from none other than Darren Foreman. Darren Foreman, better known as Beardyman. So we're on stage at Bath's Comedia, and it's a comedy venue, I guess. And tonight, Beardyman is going to be performing, and we're lucky enough to have an exclusive little interview with him as he is putting it all together.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, yeah, what do you want to know?
Is this the Beardytron Mark II, or have we moved on?
I sort of ditched all my hardware about 3.5 years ago or something. I had Chaos pads and no computers, just hardware. And it just wasn't really working for me because it couldn't do what I wanted it to do. Right. It wasn't capable enough or light enough or fail-safe enough or... There's all the problems that you have with hardware I have with it. So I had to sort of go back to the drawing board and kind of design from the ground up and sort of think, what do I actually want from what do I want a show to be? What do I want to be able to do? And sort of go back to first principles about what a looping system or a live production system should be. And I got a team of developers to build it for me. It was this long, extensive kind of prototyping phase that took 3 years, and then a build that took the best part of a year, and then several iterations. So I suppose we're on maybe Mark 6 or 7 at this point, okay. Depending on what, I mean, who's counting? So
these are the DMG, I read there's the DMG, they're the guys who've done the coding, the underlying sort of programming of the system. And you were using Tornado, is that still something that you're using now?
So it's,
with Sugarbytes?
So DMG Audio is, the brains behind it is Dave Gamble. He's one of the smartest people I think I've ever met in my life. He's just amazing. And he managed to make this distributed system where, so on each of these things goes an iPad, and I stick them on with these weird, they're called grifty noodles. And they're fine.
So they right.
And yeah, I mean, the box itself, you know, me and Pete sort of laboured over the design of it for ages to try and find a way that it would be road worthy and sort of compactable
and
onto a plane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like anything, it needs sort of updating and replacing every so often. Like all of the USB things have kind of gone, which means that the computer kind of glitches out and all of these stop working, which has happened in every show for the last 3 shows.
Yes.
Which is usually people's favourite part, because then I start beatboxing and they're like, yeah, at last, that's what we actually came for. So it's kind of hasn't ruined the shows, but we're sort of replacing bits as we go. It's a bit like the Tyne Bridge, where you start painting one end and then by the time you got to the other end, it's
time to start again.
So, but software-wise, Tornado is the effects brain of it all. There's like 15 instances of Tornado, I think. There's Guitar Rig. That's all in this laptop, which is controlling, which is the sort of, that's processing all the sound. But this laptop has got Ableton running, which I don't actually run loops in. It just houses loads of instances of massive piano tech, VB3, loads of other things which are just really good sort of real-time musical instrument emulations, rather than sample-based, because they always have a loading time. There's always like a sort of RAM factor to consider and stuff like that.
So like a few years ago, you were talking about that everything you were doing was coming from the voice, you were generating from the voice. This tour, you're actually using sound sources from other places as well now?
Yeah, I mean, like when I actually started on this sort of mission of building this thing from the ground up, I thought I would be using only my voice, and I thought my whole thing was going to be, you know, showing what could be done with just the human voice and technology. Or at least I thought that I could. It's just, doing that's very hard and not necessarily any better sonically than any other way. So it's kind of, I mean, I'm more interested, I have always been sort of mostly interested in what can be done with technology to make music regardless of what the source material is. But it fascinated me for a time what you could do. So I've got things that use the human voice and manipulate it and mangle it and stuff like that. So I've got a sampler which you just press the pads and it immediately samples into the pads and you immediately play them back. They light up when they've got content in them. And then I can kind of mangle them and put them through effects and stuff. And that's very immediate. Then I can sort of put that, sample it into a keyboard and I'm sort of stretched out across the keys. So there's stuff like that that's fairly sort of uniquely intuitive as a way of sampling and playing back. But none of that's particularly groundbreaking. But it's just stuff that it didn't exist. I had to get it built. So.
But this tour is this particular tour is the point of it is that you're making an album every performance that you do.
Yeah.
And this is completely built out of
completely mental
stuff that is made absolutely in the moment, not relying on any samples or anything pre-written.
Yeah.
Everything is completely generated on the spot. And is that based on sort of audience participation then?
Yeah. So the audience make up song titles. And then I pick them out of a hat, and I make songs that I think those song titles would be. So if it sounds like it would be like metal, then I'll do a metal song. If it sounds like it would be, whatever genre, But if I let the audience choose the genre a lot of the time, if nothing's jumping out at me as like what it would obviously be, then I let the audience choose, and they just shout out genres, which is a lot of fun because.
Yeah.
I love having a blank slate. I love not knowing what the night's going to be.
Wow.
It's exciting to me.
Now, a piece of paper on which is written the following words. If you lick my ear, I'll punch you in the mouth. Oh, that started so promisingly.
So another thing about this tour that seems different from other things then is that are they largely seated venues for this particular tour?
Yeah, it's the first time I've done a tour of seated venues. I've done the Edinburgh Fringe for the last, I think, 5 years. Right. And every time I've done that, I've done something slightly different. But I've kind of been working on this show for the last 3 years. And that's the Edinburgh Festival, whenever I do it, it's always to seated audiences. And I've sort of been honing my sort of, audience banter, where I didn't come from that world, do you know what I mean? I came from like...
More of a club world.
Yeah, exactly, like just doing music where you can say stuff and it doesn't need to be funny. You just say stuff and that's cool. But if everyone's sitting in chairs... Yeah. You sort of have to have a bit of chat on you, otherwise you can't. So, that, and also people keep framing this as a comedy show, which is fine because some of it's really funny. Well, I mean, it sort of is a comedy show, but I don't really like the term because I kind of think of a lot of comedy. When you hear the word comedy, you think of it's something throwaway or it's something cheap or it's something like it's somehow frivolous. But that's not the way it is with a lot of comedy because it's like sometimes. If you say something in a comedic context, you can get across things that you could never get away with saying to people in any other way, and you can get stuff across. So it's really a license to go off on one.
Yeah, yeah.
We have been pushed around too long. Never shall we forget that this shit happened. I'm doing the right thing for hard-working people of this country. We need to get the economy back on track, and that is a moral choice.
It's a funny thing, because, it's a real sort of labyrinth of possibilities. If you start... So, for example, like, someone will... I'll pick a song title out of a hat, and it'll be something... fairly ambiguous. If it is something ambiguous, they're my favourite ones. Right. So then, like, you never know where it's going to go. Like, someone could shout out a country and western or something, and then someone else will shout out jungle. So I'll do like jungle and western, but whereas maybe I've done that combination of things before, I'll try and do it in a different way, or try and do a different kind of country or a different kind of jungle or something. I've got loads of settings and different presets and stuff that can all be sort of changed on the fly and stuff. But lyrically, if it's something that comes out of the hat that's ambiguous and I take it in a particular direction, maybe I'll take one of their genre suggestions and not the other, or maybe the fact that I'm struggling to try and make it make sense will actually mean that I have to sort of discuss it with the audience for a bit before I start the song, and then we come up with a whole new concept. But you just never know where it's going to go, and like sometimes I'll start something immediately and the tech helps to inform what I'm doing because I'll make a mistake, and then I'll stop and I'll explain that it was a mistake and everyone laughs, and then I'll go with the mistake and stuff. So
okay.
yeah,
and
it's an interplay.
Is it important for you then not to repeat yourself then? Because obviously lots of comedians are going out and essentially doing variations of the same thing, but for you
it's a problem for comedians actually when they work on material for at least a year to get the shit right, and then you burn it because it goes up online, and then you check out the comedian's material, then you go see him live, you know the punchlines,
you know the jokes.
So it's a problem for comics, but that's never been an issue for me. And I just when it comes to music as well, I don't like the idea of doing the same music every night, because as great as that is, I don't know, I've got one of those brains that just I can't listen to something again and again and again without hating it, and my own material included. Or not hating it, but wanting to change it. So a lot of artists will change their songs as they play them. They'll do them in, like David Bowie does that a lot. He'll like do his songs in loads of different styles just to keep himself interested. Because if you don't, you can either go down the route of like just phoning it in and the song becomes a caricature of what it was and you're not really feeling it anymore, or you try and find a new way of doing it every time and it changes, and it's interesting stuff, but like again, it's not something that I explore because I tend more just to create new shit, which that interests me more. Yeah,
so then turn into the actual working process then. In your design, I guess, the very essence of your show being that spontaneity and to be able to go in completely unexpected directions has been a big part of how you've put this together.
Do you know the bit I'm most proud of?
Go on.
Is finding out that if you scrunch up little bits of gaffer tape,
right,
it's the perfect cushioning and aeration system for a laptop.
Ah, good tip.
That is the biggest and most important innovation in this whole rig. And it secures it to the thing, it cushions it and elevates it for the sake of aeration. Take that one home, kids. That is big news, mate.
So in terms of actually having that contingency plan when things do go wrong, or does the system stay afloat, but just elements kind of go down, or can the whole thing go down?
Unfortunately, the way that USB seems to work, if one thing gets unplugged, everything gets like de-addressed. So if one USB thing is faulty and there's loads of USB stuff, then that's kind of a catastrophic controller failure. Then I need to reboot everything, unplug, replug. So that's annoying. But I mean, there's only one bug left in the system, the only known bug left in the system, which can actually cause sort of catastrophic failure. And the crackles appear, but I've got a workaround for it. I don't know. It's taken a long time to iron out all the bugs. When you're the only user of a system, you're the only person doing QA, so it can be quite tedious to test and quite time-consuming.
But you did it. But when this stuff goes on, you're keeping addressing the audience, keeping them involved in the show, keeping the energy going.
And I'll be rebooting beatboxing while rebooting, but making a joke out of that.
So
and
everyone gets.
It's sort of fine, but it's not ideal. I get a bit nervous though when I'm doing like a TV spot and it's live and it's a 5-minute bit and there's just one chance to do it. That gets a bit nerve-wracking, especially if you're improvising as well. So there's a lot of pressure on them because it's like, well, not only have I got to make sure I do some shit that is not the whack, but the shit must also not fail. So,
So this brings me to a question I've been wondering about. This whole kind of idea of like the hemispheres of our brain. One side is, the left side is the technical, mathematical, and the right side is the creative. But your system is kind of it's a very technical system, but to be flowing and creative, you need to be very much in the sort of the right hemisphere of the brain. How do you find that particular dichotomy there?
Yeah, well, it's a very complex instrument, this thing, but I think it's just having the 10,000 hours or whatever, where it becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
So if I change something, I then really notice just how much of the control of this thing has gone into my subconscious.
Right.
Because suddenly I'm reaching for a button that isn't there or something. But it's taken a long time, as I say, to get to this level of proficiency with this thing. Because I built it, and I was like, this is amazing, I built it. And I was like, how the fuck? It's like flying a plane.
Right.
So yeah, it took a while to figure out how to actually use it. And there's been a lot of refinement done in sort of macroizing. What? That's how you do it?
No, it's not. You put
How
it
is
on
it
the
not?
edge so this fits.
Oh yeah, this becomes like Pete's rig whilst it's being set up and taken
It's on
down.
the road. It's
So everything's now more or less in place. So the 4 iPads, 2 laptops, 3 MIDI controllers, keyboards, 3 MIDI floor controls, expression pedal, switches.
Yep.
Yeah. VG99 guitar.
VG99.
Right, okay.
I don't know if they make anything like the VG99 at the moment. They seem to be moving away from the hexaphonic pickup world with things that don't quite do the same thing. So I think I might have to stock up on these before they all break, because I don't think they're going to return to that. And the way that I do the show means that this allows me to be like an entire metal band with just one string.
Right.
So it's very good, but I don't think there's anything that Roland do now that can do that.
Because we don't necessarily associate you with guitar, but did you start on guitar, or were you a guitarist?
Yeah.
Teenage guitarist?
Yeah, I'd say teenage guitarist.
Right.
I think that's about the only accolade I can give myself when it comes to guitar. But on my last album, there was a lot of guitar on it. But I can't like shred. I'm not very good. But I can sort of, I can pull off a tune.
So essentially, then, with your rig, then you the 4 iPads, are they all running the same software, or have they all got different tasks?
This one runs Lima, and it's like a huge Lima patch with genres and then sub-genres in each genre. So I had to kind of learn to script in Lima, which was annoying, but
was that
now
there's lots of prog rock then?
You did, yeah.
Oh.
There's lots of there's interdependencies built in, so you've got like a dry drop that kind of flicks everything down to where it should be for a dry drop, or a ringing drop which keeps the reverb tails, or a wet drop that keeps the reverb and delay exactly where they are, or you can just swipe and everything goes back to its rest positions. Lots of scripting to make things easy to manipulate in real time.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, panic and stuff like that.
Yeah, panic.
Yeah, that just makes a big red siren go off and the fire alarm start going.
Right.
Yeah. But these are running bespoke apps, so they look a bit like Touch OSC because that's what I kind of designed them in, just as a template. But they're completely bespoke, using our own graphics libraries, and they're actually very, very stable.
And they're simply MIDI controllers then, all the
Well,
kind of...
no, they're actually NSC, which no one else uses, which is I think only Mackie protocol. In fact, it's never really used. Maybe it's used more these days because there's loads of sort of, HTML, sort of bespoke data over Wi-Fi kind of stuff with mixing desks now and stuff like that. But when we built this, it was quite unheard of to do that, because that displays waveform data.
Okay.
And these aren't doing audio processing, so that has to be...
So all the audio
over
processing is
the
coming
computer.
from the computer.
This computer is the brain,
Yep.
and this one just generates sound, so that just houses synthesizers. Yeah.
So really then, these are controllers.
Purely controllers.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. This one only talks to that computer, and these only talk to that computer.
And what way are they connecting with MIDI? Are they wireless MIDI, or are they going through...
Then this one uses MIDI, these don't. These use NSC, and they go straight through to the looper.
Right.
But these are a bit more ancient. These came from version 1, which was done about 3 years ago, and this was developed last year. So this is my own drum machine that I had built for me because I wanted something that could sample my beatboxing immediately in the same way that I've got like a sampler where I can immediately play back stuff that I've sampled. I can trigger pads from this drum machine. I've got everything grouped into, you know, drum groups, and then they're all routed through further instances of Tornado. And then I've got this sort of XY thing which selects the grid, and it's based a little bit on some of the old Cubase tech, which I think you now find in Logic, where you've got a kind of grid where you've got like the hecticness or whatever they call it, or how detailed the drum breaks are on one axis, and then you've got the style on the other axis or whatever. So it's similar to that, but it incorporates loads of different ideas from different drum machines I've seen.
Right, cool. Did I see you were running caffeine then on the laptops as well? Like that's just keeps them.
Yeah, you got to keep it from
awake,
from going to sleep.
Going to sleep. Yeah, useful.
Got some caffeine for myself as well. Actually.
Yes.
So this is Bidule.
Bidule. Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah. So that's acting essentially as the kind of the
all
the
it's doing is MIDI routing.
MIDI routing. Yeah.
Which it's good at. It's a bit fiddly. It would probably be better if I was to use something like there's that one other program where you have one line per MIDI interaction. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway,
not sure.
Yeah, there's actually surprisingly few ways to route MIDI in a smart way. You can use Max or you can use Bidule, and there's this one other Bohm MIDI translator.
Of course, Bohm. Yes.
Yeah, but Bohm looked a bit fiddly for me, and I like things to be laid out visually because I'm not a coder, so.
So you're using an RME, is that a Fireface or?
Yeah.
As your main audio interface, and
it seemed like a no-brainer to use that because you can record directly onto a USB key,
or the multi-channel.
I've only seen that on high-end desks. In terms of small, you know, like 1U cards. That's the only one I've seen that can do that, and that's great because that saves me a whole unit and loads of cabling.
Great. And then there's a voice live.
And it's amazing as well.
Yeah.
But I've broken a few because you beatbox into their preamps and they tend to explode.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Now you beatbox into anything and it'll tend to explode.
Wow. And you're using that's the TC Voice Live rack there.
It is, which I'm sure they're going to discontinue soon because that's just typical of the way that my life seems to go. Is I'd start to rely on one piece of tech and then they discontinue the whole line.
The pace of technology moves on so fast.
When I started designing this, there were no iPads, so I had to use the original Lemur. So I've still got that in my loft, just gathering dust, and it's just a museum piece now. You know, it was never very good as a touchscreen, but it was the first ever commercially available touchscreen.
Absolutely.
So now it's just added to my museum. Yeah, it's really hard to be in a kind of developer mode and simultaneously be a musician. You know, these days you have so many options open to you that at some point you have to stop innovating and make some fucking music.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to stop tweaking at some point. And I reached that stage about like maybe 6 months or a year ago, and I'm all the better for it.
Cool.
But I didn't want to stop adding things until I got the full feature set. So I've got, you know, the crazy synth workstation beast, and you know, this fully featured looper that's basically a little digital audio workstation all in itself. So yeah, I feel like I can stop now and just make music with it, which is great.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to make a fucking album now, and I'm going to make an album using your suggestions. Some of you are very creative people, others of you are drunk people with pens, nothing more. Oh, spirit badger, protect me from pubes in my teeth. It spoils sexual encounters. It's a good show. That's enough of that. Go on, go get joining us here in 20 minutes. Cheers!
Post-show, fantastic show. How do you feel?
I feel elated. And satisfied.
Very good.
It's not all shows are like amazing.
I agree.
Some of them are whack.
With the Beardytron setup, you have a certain amount of kind of things that can just get you going, just in terms of, so if people do shout out a particular genre, then you've got a few things that'll just put you on track, but then...
Yeah, well, so I've got like, and it took a long time to get it all together, but there's like, what is it? Like 8 instances of massive by 8 instances of massive. So you've got like 8 tracks, each of them with massive in, but because massive can only access 128 presets by program changes, then I have to have different instances of massive that I turn on and off in each channel.
Wow.
Getting Ableton to do that and getting Native's sort of file management systems to get around that is really annoying. Right. And I've like only discovered sort of the walls that I sort of run up against in the sort of getting the file management system right. It's really boring. But essentially, at the end of the day, I've got this huge panoply of genres and subgenres and stuff like that, and it took a while to sort of figure out where the links were. So like one of my categories is like UK and Jamaican, which covers like old school hardcore, jungle, reggae, stuff like that, which all use the same kind of sound set because they all came from the same root. So it's sort of UK music, like underground rave music influenced by Jamaican music and stuff like that. So that's all the same sound set, so that's all the same instance of massive.
Excellent.
So it's like, yeah. So a lot of sort of the history of genres is woven into the management of preset files and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know, it's mad. It's mad how much work it's taken to be able to quickly flit into a genre.
Right.
And there are presets, so it's not as if I'm making all the presets live, because you've got to draw the line somewhere. What you're going to stop
Well, I mean, this
doing
is
live.
very complicated. Massive is a very complicated synth. You're not going to be building those patches.
Well, I've made them all myself, and because I started buying sound packs, and they were shit. Well, they weren't shit, but they weren't what I needed. So I'm now really good at massive.
Right.
Which is I chose it because it's so well supported, and I know that it's because it's used by so many people. Native are going to support it for ages.
Yes.
So like, but I could have chosen Synthmaster or I mean, Omnisphere would be interesting, but the loading times are nuts. So that's the thing. So everything I use in there is synthesis. So it's so there's no samples anywhere in the rig. Like, it's funny, there was a point like a couple of years ago where I was sort of faced with this sort of blank slate of like, well, what synths do I use? And I just went and researched. And the thing with Synthmaster was, and I was contacting the guy that makes it, and he's like, one dude, I think he lives in Turkey. And I was just like, I'm gonna go with the super organized German Uber company that like I know will support it well. But Synthmaster is amazing and way more capable than Massive. About a year ago, I got to the point where I was like, I'm happy now. I've got all the pedals I need. I've got all the presets, or the infrastructure to build the presets I need and all this shit. But yeah, I do incremental tweaks all the time. And it's constantly improving, and there's ways to access different elements of it.
And I guess doing the shows are going to continually throw sort of spanners in the works in terms of you know,
It's sometimes
areas.
the tiniest change can make a hugest difference.
Right.
And I realise that I'm missing one little feature which can really elevate the show. Like for example, when I'm doing more like dance-oriented shows, what I often need to do is to purge everything from my sort of non-drum channels. So, but simultaneously start recording into a new loop.
Right.
So I've got that as one button now. And that was easy to do, but it wasn't something that I intuitively knew that I would need, because it's a new paradigm that I'm entering into. Like, I can't think of that many people who are trying to do that. There are people who are using Ableton to do looping stuff, but Ableton doesn't lend itself very well to this kind of blank slate idea. You sort of have to have a template in mind for the song you're going to make, which that's the only reason why I built this thing, is because there needs to be no preconceived notions of what you're going to do aside from maybe the sound sets you use.
Yeah. Just one thing I was wondering was, with obviously the beatboxing side of things, can you do an 808 different from a 909? Is that a beatbox challenge?
Oh wait, this feels like an
hard?
exam. I haven't revised. Well, 909 is like, is it not?
Yeah.
No, that's not. That's more. Well, you can pitch it up.
Yeah.
One sec.
Okay.
Saved by the bell. It's Pete. I have to go.
No, that's fine. Okay, well, guess all remains for us to say thank you ever so much for spending a few minutes with us, and excellent show, and good luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
been
you.
really fun.
Wicked.
Thank you very
Great.
much. Cheers.
Let's just try and go back to the way that shit used to be before the whackness of all the technology took over. That's why I'm gonna
Human error, destroy human.